Good morning, everybody. We are live on the Casually Baked Podcast channel with Andy Miears. He is one of the co-founders of the Helmand Valley Growers Company, as well as their head of cultivation. And we are here today. I'm very excited that these veterans have been approved for an observational study for cannabis for PTSD. And we're on the heels of a couple of episodes that we've done talking about traumatic brain injury and the research and science behind it. And our friend Andy here, he's got some stories. So Andy, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, totally. So I would love to start out with some of your anecdotal stories of your experience with sports and military injuries. I think that'd be a good place to get this party started.
Yeah, I grew up in South Texas. You pretty much play a sport. That's just the way it was back then. So you picked one and you did it. So I played baseball, football. Around 2001, 2002 was my senior year. 9/11 happened. I got to see the second plane hit they rolled in the TVs on the TV rollers with the VCRs back. They used to have the box TVs, and we knew something was going to happen. So school didn't really happen that day. I graduated 2002, and then from 2002 to 2003, I kind of just figured life out. Took that time, and then I dipped in and enlisted in the Marine Corps. And then had to wait because in Texas there were lines around the recruiting station. So it wasn't like you can go sign up and leave tomorrow. I mean, there was 3 months, 6 months waits depending on what you wanted to do or career choice. So
yeah, that's insane. So when I talked to Brian Buckley, one of your co-founders, that exact same moment was when he decided, hey, I need to step up and do something for my country. So I think it's amazing that you both were inspired by the same thing and then found each other, and then have gone on to be inspired, by cannabis to create HVGC. So when you enlisted in the military, you immediately, after getting your assignment, where did you land?
So I landed in Camp Pendleton, California, and my original job was a diesel mechanic. And I realized real quick that that's not what I want to do at all. Did some time in Iraq, came back, and then was kind of wondering what I want to do. My enlistment was going to come up in a couple of years, and I didn't really figure out what I wanted to figure out. I mean, the Marine Corps was great; it helped out a lot. Built me who I have become.
And pause, because you're supposed to be telling me anecdotal stories. You just literally skipped over your entire career in the Marines. Don't do that. No. I want to know. So you were a quarterback in high school.
Yeah.
So you got knocked around a little bit. Did you ever have a concussion playing sports in high school?
Not clinically diagnosed. I mean, there's been times where you probably like, well, I don't feel too good, and you just didn't say anything because you didn't want to tap out. So you just dealt with it. I never was rendered unconscious or anything like that. And just life of a backup quarterback in the state of Texas, I guess.
Yeah. So then when you go to Iraq and you are a Marine, what was the first injury that you suffered, or that first experience that you were like, whoa, we are not playing games here?
Oh, the real injuries were in Afghanistan.
Okay.
That's kind of where I got banged up. So after that, I decided that being in that part of the Marine Corps wasn't for me. So I heard about Marine Special Operations Command through a friend of mine. They were a couple of friends at Force Recon that were telling me about it and how to go about it. So I got over to the battalion, took selection, took ITC, and became a critical skills operator, which is now a Marine Raider, at 1st Marine Raider Battalion, and operated that way. Afghanistan, first one that was real bad. I fell off a ladder on a wall and messed up my shoulder and my wrist pretty good and hit my head pretty hard. IEDs were the main thing that rocked the head. Not necessarily absorbing them all, but we blew them in place a lot, and we blew walls up, we blew doors up. I mean, I don't know how many times I've breached a wall or breached in training or been next to an explosive that probably were too close to being. I mean, there's standoff to net explosive weight. There's a whole SOPs to that stuff, but in combat, I can't get exactly 15 meters away from the door or whatever the heck it is. Situation is what it is, and you got to get in and continue with the mission. So those hit a couple times. I had to take a knee because it just got my bell rung.
Yeah. Well, and so I had read about blast-induced head injury, and so that's what that is, right?
Essentially, yes, is the overpressure from what I understood.
Yeah. I mean, my experience is watching this shit on television. So, you see the blast and you see the people like flying through the air and landing and it's just this idea that there's so much pressure that that is put on your brain that you suffer head injury. So, after something like that happened, would you just have, long headaches, or what kind of symptoms would happen after that?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes dizziness, headaches. Our SARCs, special amphibious recon corpsmen, were great. They knew. I mean, we had some kind of rounds that a Carl Gustav round, which is a shoulder fire, anti-armor, a rocket essentially. You can only shoot that so many times where that concussion goes off next to your head before you got to kind of put that thing down and you got your bell rung. I mean, it's simple things like that not everyone got hit with a 150 pounder. There's anti-personnels that weren't as big that we were blowing up with charges and stuff that we were just eating all the time. And, you can shoot the Carl G too many times in a day and have to sit down because your eggs got scrambled. So it's just the nature of the business we were in and using the equipment we were using. I don't see it's very different than a football player taking a 30 mile an hour equivalent car accident to their body, 50 times a game. It's the same thing. You get banged up. I broke my wrist, broke my shoulder, got concussions, tore my meniscus in my knee. It's still torn, aches and pains. And I got touching disc in my lower back and my neck. It's just part of the business, but it's not, you don't play war, you got to go conduct your mission. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So when did you discover that, oh shit, I have traumatic brain injury? Like when
I mean, that's similarly, it was an epiphany kind of. I lived in my house in Oceanside with my buddy Mike, or his house, and I rented a room there. And there was a CVS probably about 5.2 miles. I had it all distanced out because for running reasons and stuff like that. And it was about 5.2 miles away. And I got in my truck and I was driving down to the CVS, and I probably got about halfway there, and I'm passing through a neighborhood by a school. And I completely forgot why I was driving, where I was going, and what I was doing. And not like you open the kitchen door and like, well, shit, what was I supposed to get? Like, I completely forgot why was I even leaving the house? Like, why am I in my truck driving around? I couldn't remember. So I pulled over into the neighborhood and I just sat there about 5-10 minutes, I'd say, leaning more on the latter of the two. I finally remembered what I was doing. Now, I didn't remember why I was going to CVS or what I was supposed to get, but I remember I was supposed to go to the store, the CVS, but I just couldn't remember my items. And I was like, shit. I went in anyways and got what I could figure out that I needed. But that's when I sat down. I looked at kind of come to Jesus moment. You look yourself in the mirror and be like, well, something's not right. This ain't okay. And I probably had a year left before I was ready to call it quits. So I went and saw the medical, and there wasn't a whole lot they could do for me because I was a short timer. I was on my way out. I declared my papers. I dropped papers. I'm not going to stay in. So, I mean, that's another story on how it's handled, but I hear nowadays it's way better. But I saw a private I don't know what you would call him, a company person, whomever it was, came up to our medical at 1st Raider Battalion, and I took a brain test where I'm looking at a screen and they put this cap on your head, and you're doing your brain whatever they do. I'm not a doctor by any means. And I know he reached out and was like, I'm kind of worried about your brain. And by that time I was already getting handed off to the VA. So, I went through that process with the VA, and,
So he says, I'm worried about your brain. You still have, maybe less than a year left in the military. And was there a certain protocol that they started putting you through? Did they just start, prescribing you pills? Like what was that process like?
Well, at that time I had been on painkillers, just all the injuries, you know what I mean? That it wasn't uncommon. With the head injuries, no. I didn't seek guidance, because another thing is too is you got to seek it too. You know what I mean? Like closed mouths don't get fed. So it is the military. It's not, they don't come wake you up every morning. Hey, how you doing today?
Good
You got to,
morning, sunshine.
yeah, you got to go express it. And that's a thing. I guess a warrior culture topic too is just, suck it up and move forward. That ideal I see is changing with the younger generation. And I noticed that it's okay to say, hey man, I need to get my head looked at, but sometimes it's not. It all depends. I mean, sometimes, it's the nature of special operations. You can't be weak. So,
Well, and I grew up on a ranch with 4 sisters out in the middle of West Texas. And yeah, I was one of those kids that was like, hearing I had worse places on my eyeball, but I kept on blinking, like, get to school. I'll
yeah,
give you something to cry about, that kind of thing. So in my
100%.
own little way, I feel you. But I like to know that things are changing, because the idea of having young men in their early 20s going through this sort of a thing, and then basically just being hopped up on opioids with guns in a war. I mean, like, what the fuck?
It's yeah. I the whole prescription pill answer to everything, I think, it needs to be reevaluated. Yeah, I mean, there was times where you would the whole Provigil incident out there, the Ambien stuff, where you got guys taking an upper, then coming back off a mission taking a downer, and literally sleepwalking in a psychosis state with grenades and shit around. So that's not the best thing to do. I know they worked on melatonin to get everyone trying to shifting on, and then these were focused things that they were really concerned about, and the melatonin switch was a big deal too. We got to get the guys off this stuff and try to get them more. And our medics were great. Like they were always trying to do the best for us, the team medics and the guys like that were attached or with us. It's it's how do you rewire a roller coaster ride? You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah.
again, I'm not a doctor. I don't know, but I found my help with cannabis. That was, I won't beat around the bush anymore. I was just got out and I was at a gym working out, and a buddy of mine came up and he's like, "Hey, my dad was a Mustang, was an enlisted guy, went an officer and retired. He was a Marine. He's like, I know, he's told me stuff, and I know what you guys go through. It's you sacrifice a lot." And he gives me a bag of weed, had 3 cultivars in it. I remember OG Kush was one and Green Crack was another. I remember those. I don't remember what the third one was. And I was like, okay, thanks. I didn't know, like, last time I had smoked weed was high school in Texas, and it smelled like a tire, and 'cause it just got smoking through, and it wasn't the best stuff. And so he gives me this stuff, and I'm looking at it, it's like, this shit looks like science. Like, what is this? So I have that little starter pipe they give you at the old head shops, you know what I mean? And I had a lighter.
Mhm.
I'm living with my buddy, and you know, nobody in the house is still active that's living in the house at the time. So I'm sneaking around back like late, and I'm hitting this thing around the backyard like I'm back and hiding it from my parents. And then buddy's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Smoking weed, man." And he's just like, "Dude, just smoke it. Like, why are you fucking on the side of the house?" And I was like, I don't know any different. That's how I'm programmed. So
Yeah, and so where are you living? Are you in California at this time?
I live in North County, San Diego.
Okay.
I'm up in the Fallbrook area, in my solace for my fort up there, and just on my little land. But yeah, and that's kind of where I learned the difference between a cultivar and the effects of a cultivar. I didn't know why, and I'm a why guy. Like, why? I need to know. I don't have to have an answer, but I like to at least start the journey of understanding why this cultivar is different than this cultivar. And that kind of piqued my interest, and I started wanting to grow a little bit.
Right
And
on. Let me pause you one second. I have a question.
Mhm.
So you discover cannabis. Were you taking opioids at the time and then discovered cannabis from being offered this bag of goodies, and you start weaning yourself off of the opioids? Or what was that transition like from pills to plants?
So, a good thank you. So my left wrist was reconstructed. I had to get tendon grafts and everything, and it was a series of 3 surgeries, and I still was waiting for the 3rd surgery. So I was yes, I was still on Percocet at that time. I wasn't taking it every day or anything like that, but I was still prescribed it. And if if I banged up my wrist or something, it was throbbing bad. That's what the doctor said to do. Take it and, do your thing. So after the last surgery, I was in a cast up to here. I had pins and bolts and everything in my wrist, holding it together so that the tendon would take and nothing would flex, and the graft would take. And that's when I got on, the Oxy 10s and the heavier stuff that they put you on, because it's it's a big surgery. And that was tough. That was my third or fourth surgery, so that's coming off anesthesia, coming off the dope. That week when you're kind of coming out of the grog is what I call it, is miserable. It's just, you feel sick. And one morning I was feeling better, and this is where cannabis was helping. So I was taking edibles. Smoking worked a little bit, but the edibles, I would just take a higher dose of edibles and just kind of zonk out and let my body rest and heal, and eat, rest, heal, eat, rest, heal, stay hydrated, get some sunlight, and do the holistic way. But I didn't take the pills, and I woke up the next morning and I was shaking. I was drenched in sweat. And then so I laid on the bathroom tile floor because I was hot. Then I got cold. Then I got hot. Then I got cold. Then I started getting mad because I'm like, why can I not control my body temperature right now? This is retarded. I've been in ice cold water. I've been in extreme heat. I've been in there. I know how to control my mind and maintain my breathing and get through things. And I just couldn't figure it out. Then I started dry heaving, and that was just miserable. So I got this cast above the toilet like this, and I can't like hit it on anything. And I'm dry heaving and I can't maintain my body temperature. So then I'm just getting aggravated, hitting the wall. And it's like, what the F's wrong with me? And my girlfriend goes, stop beating up the sheetrock, first of all. Second of all, this is called a withdrawal. And I'd never had withdrawals before. I'd never been, I joined the military pretty much right out of high school. So I didn't have time to not have a piss test. So to experience that part of life. And I looked at myself and I said, I'll never, ever judge anybody that ever said that they had to beat withdrawal. You don't know until you walk in someone's shoes. That's that they always say, you walk a mile in their shoes, you know something. So I've had family members that have been, on heroin and things like that most of their adult life. And I just never understood their hurt or their pain. And at that moment, I was like, well, damn, I'm a very judgmental asshole. Now I understand what it's like to walk a mile in the shoes. And I was like, never again. I opened up the cabinet, had about 17 pill bottles, dumped them all down the toilet, which, by the way, is not the best way to get rid of your prescription pills. But at the time, it was an impulse thing. So I'm not advocating getting flipper high or anything through the sewage system. But I got rid of them that way. And then I was on a mission at that point in time. Cannabis worked. How and can I? You still needed some opioid based. I mean, the nerve blocks, things like that, like the trauma and the repair really hurt. So I think I was able to balance, and cannabis helped me step down that balance to the point where a Tylenol or a Motrin or something like an 800 milligram Motrin would do it instead of an opioid.
Yeah. So the cannabis helped you titrate off of all of the painkillers.
Yeah. Yes. And then, as everyone knows, or anybody who's been on a pain knows, that there's more to it. There's constipation. There's things that come with heavy pill usage that just, man, that it screws you up, because that's toxic waste just sitting in there, not coming out, if you want to think about your body. And so I had to know why again. And that's when it drove me to cultivate. And then not only cultivate, but go to school for sustainable agriculture and plant science. Mainly the plant science side is what got me. I love sustainability and all, but the science of why and how a plant works, the RNA, the DNA, and that fascinated me, because that's genetics. That's the root of what this plant can do, terpene, cannabinoid based, and all that stuff. And then learning about the endocannabinoid system in our bodies, that we all have it. So we all have receptors that are for THC, CBD, and the whole spectrum. That kind of just said, I don't know if I have a natural receptor for a synthetic opioid, but I do know I have a natural receptor for a natural plant. So that just drove me even more. So I just kept going and kept cultivating and never stopped.
I love that. So when you and Brian, and then who is the third co-founder of HVGC?
Matt Curran, he was a former Marine Raider too. We all worked at 1st Marine Raider Battalion together here at Camp Hill.
And so when you started HVGC, did you simultaneously start the Battle Brothers Foundation? Were those things paired together from the beginning, or did one come first?
So Battle Brothers was first. That was first and foremost the first thing we wanted to do. We were working security. I was working, and some of us are. I mean, it's just kind of the thing we do. It's what we're good at. So I worked privately for about a year, and
So tell us what the Battle Brothers Foundation is, and then go into that.
So Battle Brothers Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit. And what we wanted to do originally with it was to help veterans transition, a 3-phase transition approach: mental, financial, and then well-being with the job placement and economic. So what we did is we would get a veteran, and we would have partnerships. If the veteran needed to get clean, we had partners across the state, north, central, and south, that were good facilities, clean facilities that you could go and just take a knee and get clean. And once you came out of that facility, we would pair you up with someone who has transitioned successfully through it. And that way it's a sponsor, a battle buddy. You know what I mean? Call me at 2 a.m. I don't care. Just, I'm here. And that kind of idea worked out well. We got a couple guys in the mechanic positions. We got a couple of people in the cannabis industry as interns and things like that, helping them with the job placement side. But one thing I noticed dealing with the veterans that were coming through us to originally, I'm not experienced in running nonprofits. I just knew we needed to help. So all I knew how to do was lend an ear, and I can be there for you. And the doctors and everything, they can do their job the correct way. But what I did notice is a lot of the guys that were heavy drinkers, opioids, heroin, methamphetamines, a lot of them, and I'm not going to say all of them, but a lot of them came and would talk to me on the side and be like, man, cannabis is really helping me with my addiction. It's helping me step down off of it. And not have to use as much. And I would tell them my story with the pills and how it helped me stair step my way off the opioid abuse. And I connect the dots. I don't have to be a detective. I don't have to be anything to know that these guys are giving me the honest truth. So I started organics. Really, 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 living soils fascinated me. So I got myself a microscope and did my research, and I had some great professors. I won't name names. I won't name institutions because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I had some phenomenal professors that were supportive in our mission, and supportive that it was in agriculture, and supportive that we were trying to do right practices, ethical practices, and helped me along the way, understanding dissecting scopes and looking at things, identifying eggs, on an IPM strategy, integrated pest management, identifying good eggs, bad eggs, identifying species, and then being able to treat with insects locally to fight and create a biodiverse ecosystem. So I'm not spraying, we're not using pesticides. And then I would take those cultivars that I would grow under my medical license, 215 at that time, and I would just give it to my friends that were struggling. And a lot of these guys won't talk, you just don't talk. You shut up, tighten up your pack strap, you just keep going. Yep. So we could talk because we chewed the same dirt. So I'd give them a cultivar and be like, look, man, just like a patrol logbook, just write down, does it work? Does it not work? Sleep, eating, mental, whatever. And if it doesn't, be explicit and tell me why. I want to know why this didn't work. And then, so I took those journal entries with my own, and I started growing cultivars that were working for them and helping them with their process through. And then I haven't stopped.
What are some of the favorite cultivars that came out of that experiment?
A lot of the purples, to be honest. I ran some Bubbas that were crossed with purple. The Granddaddy Purple was a phenomenal one. And I met some guy, almost North County that, probably double my age, that had a Granddaddy Purple. That was pretty cool. And I was honored that he thought that we should try it because he thought it would help. And so we worked with a couple of things like that. I had a few former football players, former guys that were just like, look, I'm looking for help. And so I would just like, try this, try that. And a lot of times like, nope. And then for the Granddaddy Purple, it comes up because I gave him that, and he's like, holy shit. He's like, I want all of it. I was just like, well, let's, I don't have all of it, but we'll see what we can do with what we can do, because I stayed within my limits as best as possible. And
so you started the Battle Brothers Foundation. You're growing cannabis. You're sharing it with the people in your group. At what point did y'all say, we're going to change shit at the VA and start that journey?
I think it was probably around 16, 17, around that time frame there. We were just like, there's something here. And then we needed to know more. So Brian, he's the former captain. He puts the suit on, the nice tie, goes in and talks, and he went in front of a few congressmen and women and asked, like, okay, we must be serious here. If I was to present something to you, what do you expect? What would you expect us to present that you would hear us on a floor? And they were just like, we need facts. We need medical facts, studies, observations, whatever they are. We just need U.S. studies done by U.S. doctors, and that to be a journal entry and now be fact in medicine. Password, good or bad, but a end state with the scientific method and then reproduce. So we were like, okay, challenge accepted. I mean, you give 3 Marines marching orders. We said, okay. And started working down that route. We linked up with NiaMedic. They're out of Israel. They had been doing studies with cannabis out there in Israel, and had, they had the blueprint already.
Yeah, they're very progressed there in their scientific or cannabis research.
Exactly. So we didn't have to come up with a whole hell of a lot, just to help add more spokes to the wheel that was already created. Not trying to reinvent the wheel, not trying to step on anybody's studies. I'm not trying to say we're first, we're last for anything. We just want to help. I just want to be a spoke that helps the wheel keep moving forward. And so we started touching base, like, this is what you need to do. We need to file for a private IRB, and that's the difference between us and an academia institutional review board. Is we're not through anything academic or academia. We are private. We did our institutional review board private funded with no grants from the state government or anybody. So they can use Prop 64 legal cannabis in our study. They don't have to use NIDA or government cannabis or DEA or anything like that. So the veterans going through the program will be able to go to the store, get the product, and use the product that are on the shelves, not that's being shipped to us from the DEA or from NIDA, and actually get an observational study done on the cannabis being used in the industry. And I think that's a big thing.
Now, are the cannabis cultivars that are being used in this new study that you were just approved for, are you growing those, or are people going to be able to go into a dispensary and get whatever cannabis they want?
Yeah, for the first round, we just want to get a baseline. So we want to see what's working, what profiles are working, and then we'll narrow it down to what formula and create a formula out of that. And then we can start producing from there. So the first step is just to understand. And the way science works is they don't let you just go hit the grand slam right off the bat. You got to get a couple singles. You got to show them that you can steal second. And then you got to show them that you're making the right progress, because it is an institutional review board. They're watching you every step of the way. They have guidelines and ethical means to make sure your study stays, where science, essentially medical.
Right.
Science. Yeah,
totally. So I hear all of that, but I didn't hear whether or not it's your cannabis that you're cultivating that's being used in this first study or not. Is it yours?
No, the first study is just a baseline. My facility's still under being built. So
Okay, got it. So what's baseline? Just like, this is my life without cannabis. This is
terpenes, cannabinoids, profiles. We're looking at what profiles work. So if you get an OG Kush, just for an example, and you're showing that positive sleep results or positive appetite from that, and I see 60 other vets that tried an OG Kush and they're saying the same thing, then now we can start looking at that profile of OG. What's in it? What terpene profiles? What cannabinoids? So then we can develop the formula, because this isn't going to be a smoke. Some of the flower will be, but the actual science will be through probably a tincture base. Just for, you're not messing with any of the organs. I'm not hurting the lungs. I'm not hurting the liver. I'm not hurting them. I'm introducing it straight to the bloodstream through under the tongue and getting it to the proper dosing. Now, will we have cannabis with those profiles for sale? Sure, yes, to help with the nonprofit, but the main application rate's not going to be anything inhalation. It's going to be more or less a tincture, from what I understand now. And I may be speaking out of my boundaries here, because I'm just not a doctor or the scientist, but that's what we're looking for first. So we have to establish the baseline to appease the steps. And once we do that, then we can move forward with a formula, and we can say we came up with this formula because of this baseline. And that's how we can move forward. But without the baseline, it's inconclusive. We have to come up with a control or a base.
Okay, so from between the time that Brian went and spoke with the congressman to y'all being approved for this observational study, how many years are between that time?
I'd say 3-4 years.
Okay.
So
And so you were just approved for this study into February, correct?
weeks ago, yes.
Okay. So when does everything kick off?
So it is. We're on the roll now. Like with anything, it costs money. So that's why with Helmand Valley Growers Company, 100% of what we do, 100% of profits of what we do goes to fund the research. So um, the better we can do retail side, the more we can donate. And we have people reaching out outside. You don't just have to be part of the cannabis industry or buy cannabis to donate. Battle Brothers is its own 501c3 nonprofit, non-associated to cannabis at all. It's just the action arm that we use for the medical side of the study. So anybody can donate to Battle Brothers if they want to help the cause.
Outstanding. And so this particular study, you're focusing on PTSD. So once we move through and we, grease the wheels, so to speak, in getting some changes at the VA, is there any talk of doing a study on traumatic brain injury and CTE?
I would hope there would be. I mean, I would, if someone asked me to help, get the wheels in motion. Yes, I would love to hit my head. Here I'll volunteer. I think that's important, and this isn't just for veterans. We're using the veterans as a stepping stone for everybody. PTS isn't just for veterans. I mean, anybody can have PTS that goes through any traumatic. I mean, rape. I hate to say that, but things like there's serious things that PTS is real, and
Absolutely.
and it's not just us, but to get the government to listen, we'll use the veteran platform and say, look, this is real, and this could be something that can be a tool in the toolbox. We're not saying it's curing PTSD. We're trying to alleviate signs and symptoms of it, trying to help the signs and symptoms. And to do that, there has to be ethical studies, and it has to be done in America, or US government's just not going to listen to us. And that's from what they told us. So
Yeah.
that was our mission and our goal. So I
Well,
would love to.
the government's not listening to us anyway, but yes, we have to play their game, so let's play their game. So now let's talk a little bit more about your role in cultivation. So, you noticed that cannabis was changing things for you. You went and studied the science and art of farming cannabis. So tell me what your facility, I'm assuming it's indoor based on where your location is.
In a perfect world, I'd love to have living soils and just the beautiful dynamic of it all. But if this flower or medicine is used for a formula, it needs to be within a variable of accuracy. So it needs to be consistent as possible. And outside it's raining right now in southern, San Diego. It's like pouring. So came out of nowhere. That would affect the end state of a product because that day of sunlight is no longer there. So if I was to run it against a control, well, now it's inconclusive because I just had a day of rain that I didn't have on the initial test. So indoors is it would help because we can control the parameters, and salts is chemistry, and you can make the chemistry happen over and over again pretty much within a 5% variable. So it works that way. In a perfect world, I'd love to start to work with R&D and living soils indoors with maybe light tubes and artificial lighting. Just try to create it all. Try to create the control, the inside, the playing God with the atmospherics, and still get the positive product of a living soil. So that would be my goal in the end. But for now, it's to keep it as exact and as science ready as possible.
And so you are thinking about your cultivation from the perspective of using your cannabis for these studies, but in the meantime, you are selling it recreationally or on the adult use market, I would prefer to say, through the Helmand Valley Growers Company. And so people in California can find the HVGC brand. Is it in Northern and Southern California now?
Yes, so we're in some stores in Northern California, not very much. Our main footprint's down here in San Diego and Orange County area. We're on Weed Maps. You can look us up, or you can just check the website out, hvgcompany.com, or the Instagram, and see our locations and where we're at. I think we're around 40 stores statewide right now, and looking to expand more. The more we can expand, the more we can donate, and then it's
Yes. And the thing that I love as a consumer is that in order to help you guys grow faster, my favorite dispensary, I can go in and say, "Hey, do you carry HVGC?" And they're like, "No, what is that?" So, we all have the power to make some changes. So, if you would like to support um, this veterans research and help, it would behoove you to just go ask your dispensary to carry HVGC. Now, are there any delivery services that are like a national, or not national, but a California delivery service that you work with?
Yeah, we up in your area, there's one called Lucky Box. So if you want
Okay.
up in the Bay Area, Sacramento, San Francisco, all that stuff, if you want a delivery service to get you something, I know Lucky Box carries it. And down here in Southern California, we have a delivery service, I think in the North County area as
Right
well.
on. So, what are the next steps for you guys? You've got this study, this observational study that's been approved. How long will you be doing that, and then what are the next steps?
We'll continue the first study. This obviously needs to get fully funded, so that's what we're on now, is to continue to keep that money rolling in, and so that the studies can keep. That's how this works. You got people have to do the work; they need to get paid. So,
So
um,
we're living in the house while we're building it, right?
essentially,
Like, okay,
yeah.
so we've started the study, but we're still raising money to continue to fund it.
It should. It's an ending, never-ending battle, because after the
Yeah.
first study, you have to run a second study to prove the concept. Can we do this? Can we emulate this? Can we do the exact same thing again? And are the results even the same? We don't know yet. So, again, I'm not saying it could be good or bad. We don't know yet. That's what the analysis.
But we do know.
So, yeah,
Okay. We
yeah.
know, Andy.
Personally, yes. I am. We are walking examples of what cannabis has done for us in our lives. So that's. I know. We just need to let science tell us. And so that we can take those facts at that point in time, not an opinion, and go forth and try
There
to
you
do good.
go.
Yeah.
There you go. Now, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think is important to share about your story or HVGC or the Battle Brothers Foundation?
Like I said, you don't have to be part of the cannabis industry to help with Battle Brothers. If this is something, you're related to a veteran, or you know a veteran, or your neighbor's a veteran, and you've seen struggles and trials and tribulations, and you want to help holistically, or find another way other than prescription drugs, and Battle Brothers is there. And again, we're not just there on that side of the house, but we also are working with to help veterans transition and get on their feet when they get out. We still do that. We still need, volunteers, intern, whoever if you're a college intern or looking for a college internship, reach out. We're looking to help, and the more hands make light work. So
Yes. And I think I remember from my conversation with Brian that it doesn't matter where you live, you can utilize the services of the Battle Brothers Foundation. So it
yes,
doesn't matter if you are in Texas or some other, non-cannabis legal state. You can have phone chats, Zoom, Skype, however you connect. You can find the help you need through the Battle Brothers Foundation. So if veterans, share that information. After I spoke with Brian, I picked up the phone and called two of my childhood friends who are disabled military veterans, and I'm like, have you heard of the Battle Brothers Foundation? I want you to have somebody to talk to, because that is a very real thing. Like, people go through this, gosh, traumatic, set of maybe 7 years, 10 years of their life, and then they come home and they don't talk about it. They don't feel like they can talk about it. There's a lot of dark shit that you've seen. And I feel fortunate that my couple of friends, they will talk to me. They don't feel like they don't want to share this stuff with their spouse or whatever. But having somebody to talk to is such a huge thing. So that in and of itself is a big deal.
it is. And you want to help a vet, just talk to them. Just listen.
Ask them how they are.
Exactly. It doesn't, and that doesn't just go with a vet. That's anybody nowadays. Get off your phone and just talk to somebody. Just say hi.
Amen. I tell people all the time, like, you should at least talk to one stranger a day. It makes us better humans. It really does.
And I do want to say thanks to George and Cody Sadler here at PV. They were the ones that took a chance on us. We were looking to get that. We spoke on the nonprofit side and explained what we were trying to do for profit to help the nonprofit, and they gave us a chance. And they were like, you know what, we'll help you. We want to help vets. So they've been with us ever since and been a part of this and helped us throughout the ways. And we're part of the reason why we were able to grow so quickly is because they didn't let us make the same mistakes that they may have walked through earlier in the industry days. And definitely helped out a lot. And obviously I'm utilizing the studio right now. So
That's awesome. Yes. So one last thing, if someone wants to participate in one of the studies that the Battle Brothers Foundation is sponsoring, do you have a place on your website where people can find out more information or throw their name in a hat? How does that work?
yes, just reach out to battlebrothersfoundation.org. And we have a landing page there with the email. Same thing with Helmand the HVG company website, hvgcompany.com. If you want to get a hold of us or talk to us, just email us through there and we'll get to it. There's 3 of us, so bear with us. We try to get to everybody, but there's only 24 hours in a day, so we try. And if you're a veteran and you really need to get a hold of us, obviously there are channels you can go through the VA if it's that bad. But if not, we'll try to get there. We'll get to you as soon as we can. It's not that we're hiding or ignoring. It's just there's 3 of us, so this is getting it's growing every day, and we're trying to grow with it. So.
Well, Andy, I so appreciate your time, and I love what you're doing, and I love that you're a Texas boy, and my dad will love that Aggie cup sitting on your desk. Yes, yes. My dad played football at A&M. One of my sisters played basketball there, and then of course I lived in Austin for 11 years, so I started rooting for the University of Texas and almost got ousted out of the family.
No, they did.
Well,
They did put a few ass whippings on us for over the years, but whatever.
whatever.
12th man.
Hey, that's right. And in sports, you're never on top the whole time.
No.
Well, like I said, appreciate your time and look forward to seeing really good things coming from HVGC and the Battle Brothers Foundation. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I'll check out the comment section and see if there's any questions to answer. Oops. I hit the wrong button. Okay, the only issue I would have with the study is getting the same cannabis from my quote unquote guy, a yo-yo weekly with different varieties. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things with developing a really good relationship with cannabis is knowing the cultivar that you want to take in the morning and knowing the cultivar that's going to work before bed. Like it's not going to be the same one all day long.
Right. And then again, this just came out of the dark. This isn't something that's been here open for 20 years. California's been doing it for 20 plus years, but it hasn't been in the open. And we're still new. You know what I mean? When corn liquor came out to start putting it in a jar with a label on it, there were still issues the first 10, 20 years before it became your Jameson and what it is today. I'm just throwing random alcohol. I don't drink. Well, I'm sorry. So yeah, I mean, don't get discouraged. Less is more. There's difference between just getting baked and medicinal. You know what I mean? Like if getting baked is medicinal, that's you. But don't feel bad or don't feel judged. That's what you need to do to medicinally get to the levels you need to be at. That's fine. Some of us don't. But there's no cookie cutter answer to this. We're all independent. Our DNA is independent to ourselves. Our endocannabinoid systems are independent to us. So anybody out there that's looking or discouraged or overwhelmed, just stick with it. If it works for you, stick with it and try to find what works for you and talk to your bud tenders and see if that's possible. I know it's a retail game and I know it's a business. You have to keep fresh, new marketing, branding, everything. That's where I really miss the medical side of it, because you could go in and get the same thing that from the same person that's done the right way, the way you like it. But I think that's all growing pains and we can get there, but we just got to show the studies of why we need to be there.
And I will piggyback on that, and then we'll jet. But when something's not working exactly for you, or you're trying to hone in on the right thing, don't Google. Stop asking other people. Like, go inward. Like, listen to your body. What is your body telling you? I think so much we seek for answers outside of ourselves. And most of the time, if we just get quiet, do a little meditation, and listen, our bodies will nudge us in the right direction. So I wish that for all of you. And Andy, thanks again. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.